Thank you again. I won't forget it. Perhaps the most jarring line in a night full of jarring lines from our new monarchist dictator-in-chief, President Donald Trump. After a night of strongman authoritarian rhetoric on display at the joint address to Congress, this was the message he delivered to Chief Justice Roberts in a what one commentator described as a classic mob boss moment. I wanted to dig into this, I think, fleeting but also really important remark with my friend, partner, the great Meagan Hatcher-Mays, senior advisor at United for Democracy. Meagan, you had a statement out right after this happened, and it was so powerful. You know, as you said, he said the quiet part out loud and made clear what everyone already knows. The Supreme Court works for Trump. There's no question what Trump meant when he thanked Chief Justice Roberts and promised he wouldn't forget. Roberts handed Trump a gold-plated get-out-of-jail-free card, and Trump used it with zeal, launching our country into a constitutional crisis. Meagan, bring some sanity to this madness.
Yeah. Well, yeah, my statement's kind of dire, but it's not wrong. You know, I think there is the reality is that it's not just that we're marching towards a constitutional crisis. We're in it. And I think, unfortunately, we're not being leveled with either by elected members of Congress or by the media about like what's really going on here. Donald Trump is engaging in illegal activity, like gutting the Treasury and turning over our Social Security numbers to Elon Musk and his like teenage crew of weirdos at Doge. None of that is legal. You know what I mean? And that is in fact what is causing this crisis, that Donald Trump has been empowered to kind of do whatever he wants. And he was empowered by the court. You know, it wasn't even a whole year ago, I don't think, that Chief Justice John Roberts wrote the majority opinion in a case, which I just think it's so fitting that it's called this. It's called Trump versus United States, which is correct.
It's a little on the nose, right?
Yeah, a little on the nose. But in that case, you know, effectively, the Supreme Court said that the MAGA justices said, yeah, knock yourself out. Do whatever you want. As long as it's an official act, you're immune from criminal prosecution, as long as that's part of your presidency. And so that really supercharged his second term. I think the speed with which he's been dismantling our institutions it's scarier than last time. It's more ruthless than last time. It's even less lawful than last time, if you can believe it. And it's really because the Supreme Court said, go ahead and declare yourself a king. And Donald Trump literally did. He posted on his Truth Social, long live the king. So he's not being subtle about it. And so to your point, you know, it was a very fleeting moment, just 2 seconds at the end when he came off the dais to kind of glad hand with his supporters. He went up to the justices and patted not Jon Stewart. He patted John Roberts on the back and said, thank you again. I won't forget. And it's pretty clear he was talking about thank you for that permission structure to do whatever I want. And so if it wasn't clear already, I mean, I think for those of us who pay a lot of attention to the courts, this is just another in a really long series of pieces of evidence that this court is lost to special interests and to the wealthy. But if it wasn't clear to everybody else, this tells you everything you need to know, that Trump is saying, we're in this together. You help me, I help you. And it was scary to watch. It seems pretty obvious how the power is flowing these days.
Yeah. And like, if you're not paying close attention, you look at that exchange and you look at how uncomfortable Roberts was, right? He kind of like froze, right?
Yeah.
And he didn't know how to respond. And like on some level, you almost feel pity for him, but he is the least pitiable person almost in this entire situation because he could see very clearly what would happen if Trump took power again. And not only did he do everything in his power to make sure that that happened, he did so in a way that, as you point out, has handed Trump unchecked, near monarchical, if not monarchical, power with these broad, conclusive and preclusive executive powers that Roberts himself conceived. Right, this was not something in the founding texts or originalism or textualism, and this wasn't something that even seemed to be the kind of product of the court's negotiation. New York Times reporting last year, I thought, really was helpful in illuminating just how central Roberts was in driving this case and its outcome from the get-go. Even before they had briefing and arguments, Roberts had prejudged this case. He said, and declared that they would be significantly expanding executive power. So when Trump says, "I won't forget it," it's like, not only does he not forget the absolute immunity from criminal prosecution that Roberts gave him last year, he doesn't forget the broad executive power that he, every day, as you mentioned, is unleashing against the American people, thanks to John Roberts. And there's Roberts sort of just like, here I am, created this mess. And it was interesting, actually, because the day after the speech, the day we're recording here, the order came down from the Supreme Court with Chief Justice Roberts in the majority, a 5-4 majority with Barrett and the liberals, at least, sort of nominally rejecting the Trump argument in the U.S. aid funding freeze case, and saying that the district court in that case, Judge Ali, would have to sort of clarify the timeline under which they would have to comply with the order from the lower court. So Roberts gave him a loss, but also at the same time effectively gave him the outcome he was looking for in terms of the rewarding the defiance that the Trump administration had shown to that point. But you got Roberts just kind of like trying to figure out how to retain his power while also clearly sort of hostile to Trump.
Yeah, I think one thing you and I both have noticed about John Roberts is he is a savvy sort of PR guy. He knows when things look bad for him. I think he is really preoccupied about the reputation of the court, not so preoccupied that he wants to do anything about it. But I think what he wishes is that they could do all the bad things they want to do without people paying so much attention. And so it's not helpful to him and his aims if Trump is pointing it out, or if his colleagues are being very vociferous with their corruption or ethical lapses, as it were. And so I think what he prefers is to be able to kind of play both sides. He wants to be able to sort of implement this Reagan-ite vision for the country, which is very similar to what Trump is doing right now, this unitary executive theory stuff. He wants to be able to do all that. He wants to gut voting rights, but he just doesn't want people to pay attention. Like, he doesn't want people to get mad at him for doing it. And so this thing of Trump kind of exposing him as kind of being in league with him to implement his goals, it's not good for his cred, I guess I would say. It's not good for his reputation. So it is interesting, this timing of, quick, let's put out a case that most people will read as a loss for Trump, even though the delay ultimately does help Trump prevent, critical aid from going to places that need it, or payments to people who've already done the work in some cases. It's still, kind of on paper, something of a win, just like you said, but the press will report it as this great loss for Trump, and that Roberts stood up to him and handed him a loss. That's kind of the message that comes out of those types of cases, even though it's not that bad for Donald Trump at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think that point is really worth repeating, because that's why we have these types of emergency injunctions or temporary restraining orders when there is irreparable harm, right? That where the court steps in without resolving, once and for all, the merits of the underlying dispute, to put a stop to the challenged action, in this case of the USAID funding freeze, because to not stop that action would create immediate irreparable harm. And that is continuing to occur, right? Even after this so-called win for Trump, from Roberts and Barrett joining the majority, and I think even still, like, the MAGA faction, nothing's ever enough for them, right? And so even as, like, it could be even on some level advantageous for them to have the court sort of rubber stamp this and say, like, just go through the motions here, because I think that's a little bit the message they're sending. We're already seeing the backlash, less against Roberts, more against Amy Coney Barrett. Yes. What have you seen on that front?
Big shocker there that of the two of them, they chose the woman justice. Not that I feel bad for Amy Coney Barrett, let me be clear, but already, the really hardcore MAGA people are on X/Twitter calling her a DEI hire, really kind of second guessing her qualifications. Which, by the way, I did on the merits when she was nominated. But that's not why they're doing it. So really kind of attacking her, kind of engaging in some sex discrimination, actually, which I don't think Amy Coney Barrett believes in. So it's not enough. What they want, really, Trump on down, from Donald Trump to J.D. Vance to everybody in his administration to Musk, all the way on down, what they want is unerring loyalty to Trump and to the MAGA movement. And so you should never, ever rule against him, because that is a sign of disloyalty. And I think that bodes pretty poorly for us. I think we're looking at two justices who are I don't even want to put this out in the universe, but pretty likely to retire at some point soon, probably during the Trump presidency. Alito and Thomas are kind of getting up there in age, so it's not unlikely that they would retire. And I think Donald Trump feels like, well, Barrett's not loyal enough to me, and Neil Gorsuch isn't loyal enough to me. And it bodes poorly for people who care about democracy if he doesn't think that like the most hardcore MAGA justices on this court are sufficiently loyal to him. What does that say about who he will pick to replace Alito or Clarence Thomas? It's very scary to imagine what that judge would look like. Although there are a large number of them who are auditioning for the role, from Eileen Cannon, who's pulling the strings to help him get out of this confidential documents case, to Jim Ho, who, apropos of nothing, announced to everyone he doesn't believe in birthright citizenship anymore. These are the type of people who are auditioning for this job when it opens up. And that's very scary if you think of Amy Coney Barrett becoming the median vote on the court, because she's not a moderate,
Yeah, right. It's this idea of just absolute fealty. And it's sort of part and parcel of this posture he's taken, which is like, I am the law, right? What was the tweet he put up the other day? He who saves his country violates no law.
Violates no laws. Yeah. One of the scariest things I've ever read in my life. Yeah.
Just full on, autocratic fascist leader type language. And I think how it sort of has interplay with the Supreme Court is that if the Supreme Court agrees with him, obviously that makes things easier. It has this important legitimating function for his declaration of what the law is. And, if they try to stand in the way, as I think was very clearly the message he was sending to Roberts last night, just you try to stop me.
They kind of created this monster, and he's taking advantage. He's really just with aplomb, taking this permission and running with it.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. Dark days. Meagan, thank you so much for everything you're doing. Folks, check out United for Democracy. You have heard before from Meagan's colleagues, the great Stasha Rhodes over there. You've got a coalition of 150 plus national, state-based groups, labor groups, issue-based groups, such amazing partners in that coalition. And, I think check out what they're doing, get behind them, keep calling this stuff out. I love to be in this fight with you, Meagan. Thanks for everything you're doing. Thanks for coming on with us today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Legal AF with Court Accountability. See you next time.
In collaboration with the Midas Touch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories, the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.